What do you need to be a podcast guest when it comes to tools, resources? Well, that's what this video is all about. Let's dive right into it. The first thing you're gonna do is actually a microphone. Please don't use your computer's built-in microphone. There is plenty of options out there depending on your budget, but I have a few recommendations for you. If you want a reliable microphone, you can go for the Audio-Technica ATR 2100. It's a dual microphone, which means that you can connect it straight to your computer with a USB cable, or you can use a more advanced setup and use an XLR connection. And an XLR connection is basically the setup where you connect your microphone to a mixer and then you connect that setup to your computer through an audio interface. The second recommendation is the Samsung Q2U, which is actually the microphone I am using. If you are in Europe, you want to go for the Samsung Q2U. In fact, it's often referred to as the Audio-Technica ATR 2100 European brother. It's a dual microphone as well, which means again that you can connect it straight to your computer with a USB cable or use an XLR connection. Before we take a look at the final option, a quick reminder, as I said a moment ago, there is plenty of options out there. You may be using something already. If that's the case, great. Otherwise, you can look into the Audio-Technica ATR 2100, the Samsung Q2U, or the final pick, which is the Heil PR40. This is a more expensive microphone. The price goes from $300 to $400 on Amazon, whereas the Audio-Technica and the Samsung Q2U, I think the price, depending on the discounts and deals Amazon has, the price varies between I think $70 and $100. The Heil PR40 has an XLR connection only, and this is important for you to keep in mind, because if you want to go for that, keep in mind that an XLR connection, you can't use it to connect the microphone straight to your computer. So you want to have a microphone so that your audio quality is going to be great, and then you also want to have a pair of headphones. If you have a smartphone, you probably have something like this, so you can use those, or you may want to go for something bigger, something more advanced, so to say, something similar to this. And this pair of headphones actually come with the Samsung Q2U. So if you buy the microphone, check the package. Usually it includes this pair of headphones, which is pretty cool. Next up is a podcast guest webpage. A podcast guest webpage is a webpage obviously you have on your website, and that serves the purpose to help the host say yes to your pitch. And a podcast guest webpage typically includes a little bit of background info on who you are, what you talk about. It includes some pointers in terms of topics you typically discuss when being interviewed. And then it also includes some social proof, so some testimonials, images of podcasts you have been featured on, and so forth. And here's an example of a podcast webpage, mine. The purpose of the podcast guest webpage is to have the host look into who you are and what you do and have them say yes. So here is what mine looks like. You see here, interested in interviewing me. And then below I have a couple of buttons. So one links to a contact form one can use. The other one is my PDF one sheet. I have some social proof as seen on Entrepreneur, Forbes, Inc. and so forth. I have a list of topics I'm usually asked to discuss and I'm passionate about discussing. And then here below I have some of the podcasts I've been featured on as a guest for additional social proof. And I've also added some testimonials. This one, for example, from Tom Schwab is really powerful. Pat Flynn is the nicest guy in podcasting in North America. Jan definitely gets the title of nicest podcaster in Europe. Here I also add a note that I'm available for both audio and video interviews, and then some additional things in terms of social proof. Your podcast guest webpage doesn't have to be as quote-unquote sophisticated. You can have a more minimalistic approach, let's say. Keep in mind though that the goal is to have the host learn more about who you are, what you do, what value you could add to the show, and make sure they say yes. And the third thing you're gonna need is what it's called a one sheet. A one sheet is a PDF that basically serves the same purpose of the podcast guest webpage. Some people use only the one sheet. I personally believe that using the podcast guest webpage is better in the sense that it's faster to customize a page rather than a PDF document. A moment ago, I shared my screen and showed you my podcast guest webpage, and you might have noticed that there is a button that links to my one sheet. So I have both the podcast guest webpage and the one sheet. And in the one sheet, what you want to have is make sure that you have a bio that the host could literally read word per word to introduce you to the podcast. So don't have a 20 paragraph long bio, have a short bio that the host can literally read to introduce you on the show. I have a sort of bonus tool to recommend you, and that is having a scheduler. A scheduler is a tool that allows you to create your availability and then have other people use that to pick a date and time for the interview. Let's say you can only conduct interviews on Monday from 1 to 5 p.m. your time. Having a scheduler allows you to leave that time window available, block out everything else so that you avoid back and forth, you avoid emailing people back and forth. And having a scheduler is great, especially if you're gonna be interviewed by people in different time zones, in different continents, because with a scheduler, the person who is picking a date and time sees the time in their own time zone, so you don't have to worry about conversions, having to make sure that it's the right time zone. You simply have your scheduler, and your scheduling tool is connected to a calendar, for example a Google Calendar. So if there is a specific Monday, to stick with this example, that you aren't available, you simply block that out in your Google Calendar, and that day will be unavailable in your scheduling tool. So having a scheduling tool is great, and you can also add a few fields. So you can ask the person's name, email. If you think you're gonna be doing interviews as a guest mainly on Skype or Zoom, you can already ask for the person Skype contact name or something like that, so that you really avoid having several back and forths by email, which is great. In terms of options, there is really plenty. Calendly is very popular. I used that when I started out. I now use a scheduler called Book Like a Boss, which is fantastic. There is Acuity Scheduling, there is Schedule One, so there is plenty of options. My recommendation, as I said, even if you aren't a podcaster, you simply want to be a podcast guest, use a scheduling tool to avoid having to waste your time emailing back and forth with the hosts who are gonna interview you for their podcasts.